My company called Frog, not Frog Design, we changed that. We were doing so many other things than designing products that we decided we might as well just drop that moniker of design. We work on innovation with our clients in tons of different domains: healthcare, financial or consumer products, automotive, et cetera, et cetera. And what's driving a lot of that is the imperative of change in the world that we see around us. Technology, as we see it in form of devices, networks, connected software technologies, is really changing at a very fundamental level the human experience out there. And we're not just talking about people chatting with each other and talking and twittering, etc., but really markets at a global level being connected, people being connected to each other in a very deep level. And this is kind of causing a lot of companies to face change that isn't always super pleasant. Interesting article that you might want to look up in that context is this article called "Software is Eating the World" by Mark Andreessen. A lot of the revenue models out there from companies that have been well established and have been out there being very successful for years on end are sort of being eroded. They're in jeopardy. And these companies see competitors coming on the side and over the top and are really quite worried about those things and have to really rethink what their business is all about, what value proposition they really have to offer for their clients, their customers, and what shape that should really take. Now, we've seen computing over the years go from being in these boxes that sit on desks to boxes that you have in your pocket or casually hold on your lap while you're watching TV. And we think that that's a very important trend, that basically computing and the information that you get through these devices and the communication features, everything you basically do with these interesting little boxes is slowly getting put into the world. So you can basically track this trend of computing going into all these small devices on. These people that are sitting there, in a way, are experiencing two realities, right? There's a digital reality, and there's the physical place that they're in. And I actually have this interesting little movie to kind of illustrate what they're actually experiencing.
Since a quarter after 7, I thought you were too good to be true. And then my cup of love was overflowing. I knew the stranger in the crowd, and I would be strangers no more.
So no, I don't do marketing for Coca-Cola, but I always use that movie because it so nicely shows how there's this sort of duality of reality for people in the world today. And this merger of the digital world and the physical world is something that's really interesting to us. The devices that we see everywhere are really replacing old PCs, and I just ran into these old ads recently of the Macintosh. Quite amazing how much text you used to need to explain what a computer actually is for. I love the details here also that you can take it along with you and put it in a bag. It's pretty cool. You know, Apple always had like a handle on the computer, so the user as a human would not feel intimidated by this technology. Really awesome. The joke here about computers being like trucks is sort of like that you might think of like, well, it's as if in the world today, computers, there were only trucks, and somebody suddenly figured out, oh, let's build a smaller car like a sedan, and you know the whole market changes. That's really the reality we have today. I don't think the trucks, as in computers, are going to go away, but certainly these new devices, new channels, are very rapidly blending into the marketplace at astonishing rates. We also see dedicated devices coming in and playing together with the ecosystems created by these generic boxes, like phones, for example. The thing you see here is Nike's wristband. Super interesting, dedicated devices that gather data on a real-time basis and then let you manipulate that on your phone, right? Now, these changes are actually going so fast that I think even big companies that are totally on top of this stuff, like Google, are surprised by it. And the dip in Google stock last week was a little bit of a sign for people that their revenue models are a little bit old world almost already, right? That there's things going on in the mobile space that they're currently not really set up to monetize. So the pace is just huge. And then when we're looking at the Internet of Things, we see a ton of data being generated by devices out there, not just computers and cell phones and browsers and metrics you can get through your websites, but also very different kind of objects that now have sensors, right? Like we work on pumps, for example, that basically have become like computers themselves. That's how intricate and complex they are, and they generate data. Or small transponder chips that you can put on any kind of object and track where it is in the world. Now we also see, of course, people tracking data about themselves and really just generating a stream of live information that you can track on a 24/7 basis. We see objects out there that are smart, that have sensors that can actually change given a certain circumstance and task that's being performed. They can change how they're tracking data. So data clearly is one of the most important aspects of the connected world at this moment. And of course, everybody has these beautiful diagrams that show everything getting bigger and more and more and more into the future. I think that it definitely is a cause of having to think about your business and what it can mean for your customers in the future. But what do you really do with all this data ultimately? And many of our clients kind of think that it's this, targeted advertising. And that's a great lens. I'm all for making money through these services and these ecosystems. But my company typically has a slightly different kind of lens. We like to build products that do things for people, that play an active and important role in their lives. Might also just be fun, by the way. It doesn't have to be necessarily something useful. But as long as it's really engaging and meaningful to people, it can become a part of their daily lives. And then you have something that really can become an important channel between your company and what you do for your customers and these people out there. Now, touch was actually a fundamental change that was really quite important for the humanizing of these technologies, right? If you think about the fact that there's people who can't read or write using cell phones in this world, it's quite amazing. My kids were using iPhones as soon as they came out, just started working with it. So this is a very fundamental step, but one of the first steps, I think, that enables us to merge the digital world and the real world. And we'll see more and more of that. So I actually think, for example, retail is a perfect example of a place where there's a physical space, but we are just scratching the surface of what you could do if you combine that with digital ecosystems, connecting all these devices people carry around, and think about what people are doing at home before they go shop. And a very important aspect here is that relevance goes up, right? So this daily relevance to your real lives is really going up by all these little applications and clever services that are being developed. Ultimately, you see the city itself, so the environment around you as a whole, becoming an interface for people to do things, to get information. I actually think in the next talk you'll see the same picture, and then you'll actually see some numbers about this. This is quite an interesting retail solution. But these visions of the future, where the real world merges with the virtual world, are in a way already a reality now. Right? I think everybody probably played around with Layer. I always find it a little weird when you do that stuff because people think you're taking photos, so they tend to dive away, trying to not be in your photo. So it's still a little awkward sometimes, and maybe sometimes a plain list and a map is actually more useful. But to just illustrate this notion of data being in the world and enriching life around you and being interactive, allowing you to actually take action. I've got this little movie. So here we're actually looking down, and this is in Munich, and you can actually see the U-Bahn come by. So the interesting thing is that you can by enabling these kind of views, not only layer information on top of the view a user has as a first person, you know, places of interest, what's the weather going to be like, what's that person actually doing, or where should I be going right now if I want to see that tower, for example. But you can also show them views on their environment that they can't actually, from a natural point of view, get, right? So looking down on things. Or you can even imagine like looking at spaces over time. If this information is captured over time, you can basically look back at that same location and understand what it'd be like 5 years ago. So for us to enable these kind of things, we always find it super important to start putting users at the center of the thinking. And this seems rather trivial, but in general we find that devices tend to be taken as the first element to really look at. Right, so companies tend to create groups within their organization to take care of my corporate website, my e-commerce solution, my help center, and then, oh yeah, I need a mobile app, and I need some tablet apps. And these are separate groups that are going to be thinking about those specific form factors. When what's really actually important is that all these services that you have to offer to your customers feel like one. And the devices people have really are just one window into that set of offerings you have. And people should be free to navigate between them, between these services that you have, and feel like it's all one seamless, holistic experience where your brand comes across the right way, and they just get to do things, even though one piece was built by one part of your organization, another piece was built by another part of your organization. And even physical places are touch points that you want to consider as being part of this, right? So it's very important to think about all these entryways, these touch points, as one. Now, one example of this that we've been working on together with local retailer Albert Heijn, probably most of you know them, and lots of other very, very smart people from various companies, Ice Mobile, super active here, and many other third parties. Working on API, which initially really was just a shopping list, right? A super simple piece of functionality that helps you just list what you're going to go get in the store. And it can become something that you really rely on and really like, and it plays a nice functional role in your life. And then over time, you can build it out and start integrating it with your e-commerce offerings, doing delivery and ordering, etc., right, or pickup scenarios. And that's what we're working on now. And of course, this is essentially a vehicle to use the information gathered about you already through your bonus card and make it valuable to you as a user, right? Give you offerings you care about, bonus opportunities, etc. And over time, really bring that customer closer to the company and the brand again. Albert Heijn is at the origin really has this whole thing about kan ik je helpen, right? Can I help you? And there's a very clear essence there of the company wanting to know their customer. And that's been impossible as you scale up and these retail stores get so big and lots of people come by and they don't know you. And now with technology, that comes back again, and you can make use of that. You can also use this data to empower users to personalize and then share their view on the world and their likes and dislikes and enjoy that capability also from their friends. I think one of the best examples for me personally is always still the Netflix implementation, which I don't think still is in Europe, right? They do a great job, very simple kind of friend list, a watch list you can share with your friends, and you get a lot of benefit from that. Another example here is maybe a little bit more esoteric, although I think it might be familiar to some of you guys, is in the healthcare space. We actually worked with a company on this, this pill that goes through your whole body system, right, your gastrointestinal system. And it sends data about its journey. And it allows us through that patch to, on a real-time basis, gather that data, visualize it to patients and to healthcare providers and other people involved in this process, and really improve people's lives. And the thing is not so much just that pill and that the receiver and then the server side back end of it, etc., but the entire ecosystem of services and capabilities that you can build around an idea like this that really forms the heart of the product. So we always start looking at people, human beings out there in the world, thinking about what they do, going out to their environments and seeing what their objectives are, what their intent is. So immersive research on location with people is one of the most important things we think is part of our creative process. We still see a lot of companies actually, even though they have data about their products and their customers, not know that much about what people truly do with the services and products they provide. So describing these scenarios that people are experiencing right now out there in the world and visualizing them is a super important element. I so often see companies having really intricate, Excel spreadsheets and giant PowerPoint decks with lots of bullets, and they assure me everybody is on the same page and shares the same vision. But if you actually paint that vision and show what it is ultimately going to mean and what it's going to look like, you may find that a lot of the people at the table had a very different picture in their head, even though they thought they were agreeing. So for us, making pictures, making storyboards, and showing what these scenarios are like is a very important tool in the process. Mapping also relationships between all the partners and all the players in these ecosystems, right? This is usually not a situation where there's a product and an end user and that's it. Almost always the picture is a lot more complicated, and bringing that to a visualization is very powerful. Understanding how these people move through your ecosystem, right? To which pieces they typically go, and what those journeys look like, how often they perform which ones, and really optimizing the ones that are utterly important to your business, so they don't fail on the one journey that is actually gonna make you money, right? So knowing that very well and designing for that specifically. And then there's always moments where your value proposition really is hitting your customer, and those are the moments that you want to really kind of make a little bit magic and do some extra work to just make that moment shine, and also make sure that the value of that moment accrues back to your brand. Now, oftentimes I kind of see companies do this kind of thing, and they're all talking about it and they're writing long stories about it, but one thing that we love to do also is just building it. Right? We're a company that's deeply convinced that there is a sort of logical, cerebral process of strategizing and doing your research and identifying problems and solving those problems and then designing the solutions and shipping it, right? Going to really build it. But there's also a more exploratory kind of process of discovery where we just let some of our technologists and designers really mess around with things and put stuff together and hook up data streams and see what you can do with it. And this is actually an example of us trying to figure out new ways of helping you put your furniture together when you get it at home, using all sorts of clever sensors and a cell phone. So when you walk into the lab with these guys, you see the weirdest kind of contraptions typically together. Now, once we're getting more serious and we're actually building some of these products out, another super important point always is to build a platform and let others be part of the things that you're enabling. This is an example of Agera. They essentially built a platform around chips that you can put in trucks, in boxes, in cars, on human beings, anywhere. And you'll be able to track that object all around the world and know where it is, and it can measure things like temperature and shaking, etc. So you can really kind of safeguard your merchandise. And they basically built a platform on which other people can then build additional applications. Letting other people enrich the infrastructure and the ecosystem you've set up. Now, a lot of this for many companies is actually quite a challenge. Building software at the high level of quality that people out there now expect. You'll get about 30 seconds, and if it doesn't work, or it's not easy, or it's not cool, or it doesn't meet their expectation, they'll just discard what you've built. So attention to detail is super important. And the matrix of different devices and form factors and different operating systems on which to build these solutions is quite huge. So if you're building something that actually is of strategic importance for the future of your company, and you take it seriously, right? So you don't want to just put something out there and then sort of say like, well, we're not supporting it after half a year or so. Then this is quite an investment you're making, right? You got several different OSs that you have to build for. You can share some code, but not everything. And you have to put this out there in the world and keep it live and keep on improving it on a constant basis. And not every company is going to say, yeah, that sounds really great. If your essence and your background is totally not in software, this is a very difficult thing. And so you kind of have the choice, like, do I outsource all of this? But it's quite a strategic piece of value to your customers, right? So it's a little scary if you're a serious organization to put that strategic importance in the hands of third parties. So you want to keep it close. I think it also is imperative that the leadership of companies really starts to realize that they need to understand this space, that it isn't business as usual, and then I'll ask some dudes to build me a website or to build me some app, and great, I'm also part of the new world. No, it's not good enough. Another element here is that from our perspective, a lot of the value that is in this process of discovery and really rethinking what your business is all about isn't necessarily only at that end stage of building something, right? Of creating either a physical product or a software service product. It is actually also the dialogue that takes place way earlier in the boardroom, right? With everybody being really deeply involved about what they want to do for customers and how the world's changing, how the customer base is changing, and what they can do about it. So the earlier you can start that dialogue, the better, ultimately. So I'd say start now. The world really is changing. There's a ton of opportunity out there. I think one of the things I sense in this conference as well is a huge amount of optimism about what we can do here and how important it is for people out there in the world. We do actually a lot of business outside of Europe as well. And if you see the impact of these technologies on developing countries, it's really quite amazing at all levels of society. So yeah, I'd say go invite your either your bosses or yourself or your partners to really dig in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tjeerd. One question, you seem to focus on putting customers in the center, people first.
Yeah.
How can you combine that with something like API or the bonus card, what I think is more in the interest of the company? They're gathering data to sell me more. That's not in my interest.
Well, yeah, no, it's kind of, that's actually an interesting thing, because that system was there before, right? And Albert Heijn as a company is deeply passionate about helping you as a customer. But they couldn't find an expression of that or a functional value of that initially. So they basically have this whole back end of a database about their products, which is mostly for logistics, and a database about all these people's buying behaviors, and they want to do something interesting and useful with it. Everybody is really interested in doing the things that are right for the world and saving some money and being green and letting you find the products you really care about. So when we started on this thinking about API, it really was very much about, okay, let's build something useful for people, and then in the future we can maybe bring in more features and start pulling value out of all that data out there.
Right. But what would happen in a meeting if you were present, Albert Heijn and the builders of the app, and you would say, you know what, we should have a functionality that would say to the user, this is your list, but you can save this and this and this on your list.
They love that.
They would love that. Okay, so we're going to see that in the future.
Well, there's always a balance, right? But that's with any service, there's always a balance of like, well, you want to do right by people and you want to also be open about it. And then at some point, obviously, commerce is going to come in and business, considerations. But my experience, at least in most companies, is that they want to do right by their customers, and that they're not sitting there, going like, we're going to be great,
right,
and we're going to screw everybody, because they know that that's not going to work longer term.
Okay. If there are questions from the audience, please make yourself known. In the meantime, could you, Tjeerd, tell us what's on your shelf right now? What is something that you guys come up and you're extra proud of, but we haven't heard of? What's new?
That's always so hard. Well, actually, in terms of like things that are really shipping, that Agira product I talked about is actually a really interesting piece for us, because we also did full development on it. So many of the people who work in a company like ours, they want to impact the world, right? They want to not just design stuff and have it be beautiful plans and some great demo, and then the company says, thank you very much, but we don't know exactly how to do this, or that's a little bit too far out for us, and it never happens. So, that's not good. So our designers also want to see stuff really ship and go out in the marketplace. So having the opportunity to actually go the full distance and building something and putting it out there, that's been very cool.
Right.
But a lot of the other work we do happens to be usually a little bit farther over the horizon, and it's always hush hush, and we can never talk about it, etc. So it's always, it's always hard.
And you had a slide of the Tesco Home Plus shopping in the subway. That's something that the next speaker is going to talk about, right?
Yeah.
The shopping in South Korea. Okay.
Yeah,
Any more questions from Tjeerd Hoek while he's still here? Otherwise, you can follow him when he exits that way. Tjeerd, thank you very much for letting us see some of your great work, and can't wait to hear you again.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Pleasure. Thank you.